Hi there, it's Dr. Bernstein, and in this video I'm going to provide you with some useful introductory background information on Herman Melville and his short story Bartleby, which was first published in 1853, so definitely within that American Renaissance period of 1850 to 1855. What I'm going to do actually is start by referring back to the two-part video series that introduced you to American Romanticism. And as you recall, the Romantics placed a great deal of emphasis on nature and really believed that nature possessed this sort of restorative ability that would allow people to get back in touch with their true selves and with their ideas. And in that video, I emphasized how technology was sort of getting in the way and distancing people from their true nature. And so when you were reading Hawthorne's The Artist of the Beautiful, you no doubt saw how Owen went through these periods where he would get back into the natural world, get in touch with nature, and that would be also where his creative juices would start flowing again. And artists of this period also were fascinated with the majesty of the American landscape and the horizon. And so I really encourage you to just take a moment or two to do a Google search of the Hudson River School artists, and you'll find a ton of pictures up there, a ton of paintings that are just breathtaking and beautiful, and you can see just how the American landscape was sort of idealized and this emphasis on the horizon, what's in the distance. And it's stunning. And it's also going to provide you with a stunning contrast to the world of Melvilles Bartleby. Melvilles Bartleby introduces us to a completely different world. Hawthorne's Owen and Melville's Bartleby might be outsiders within their cultures, but Owen has a vision, a beautiful idea that he's pursuing. Bartleby, on the other hand, is not a creator. He doesn't seem to have any ideas, especially not any beautiful ideas that he's pursuing, and he's a scrivener. A scrivener is a person who is hired to make handwritten copies of legal documents. So basically what he does is spend his time, or he's supposed to spend his time, copying and recopying other people's ideas and arguments rather than his own. So Bartleby doesn't seem to have a creative or artistic vision, and his horizon, what can be seen from the walls of their office, well, that's something you should really think about. And you should think about what Melville might be suggesting about the corporate culture that he depicts in his story. And as you'll notice that Bartleby spends a lot of his time in what are described as his dead wall reveries. He's just sort of looking at these dead or blank walls. And we don't really ever learn what's going on inside of him. And that's significant. And you're going to probably find this story a little bit frustrating, a little bit maddening. Because when we enter into stories, what we're usually expecting is to really get to know the characters, to really enter into their world. And that's not something that really happens in Melvilles Bartleby. And so when you find yourself feeling frustrated with this story, or really with any other story, what I suggest you do is start thinking about why you find this frustrating. Like, what expectations are you having of a story that are getting frustrated? And then the next step is to think about, well, what sort of message is the story sending about these expectations? In this case, like, it's sort of, Melville seems to be communicating some sort of idea about our ability to really ever know anyone else. So you can think about, I'm giving you a little guide there, but you can also think about how that works itself out in the story. I think that will be a very useful way of approaching the story, especially if you're reading it for the first time. I also think you should think about what strikes you as interesting or important about the narrator of the story. Who is the narrator? What is his knowledge of Bartleby? What is his knowledge of himself? Who is the story really about? Is the story really about Bartleby, or is it really about the narrator? These are all questions that you can be asking yourself as you're reading. And before you head off to read Bartleby, I want to tell you a little bit about Melville himself and how other scholars have interpreted Melville's life in relationship to the story. So some people claim that Bartleby, the story, is directly related to Melville's own experiences as a writer within his culture. So one of the problems that Melville faced was that his earlier works, which were sort of fictional travel narratives, were very popular and sold very well. Both book publishers and the reading public wanted him to continue writing these types of popular works. So in essence, this is what some scholars have pointed out, what they want is for Melville to keep copying, keep repeating what he's done before. And Melville once wrote a letter to Hawthorne and described how this is the quote, how the calm, the coolness, the silent grass-growing mood in which a man ought always to compose could rarely be his. Another quote, dollars damn me. What I feel most moved to write will not pay, yet altogether write the other way I cannot. So Melville wrote this letter while he was still working on Moby Dick, which is his masterpiece, really. I mean, if people think about Melville, if people think about, a great 19th century American work, they think about Moby Dick. But Moby Dick was not a bestseller during Melville's lifetime, though it's now considered a classic. Melville knew that his more philosophically oriented works, like Moby Dick and Bartleby, were not going to be popular, but he didn't want to revert to writing the same stories over and over again. So one scholar argues that Bartleby's switch, this is a quote, Bartleby's switch from copying what he is told to copy to staring at the wall is the counterpart to that stage in Melville's career when he shifted from writing best-selling romances to a preoccupation with the philosophic themes which dominate Moby Dick and Bartleby. Now, this scholar, whose name is Leo Marx, maintains that in the lawyer's eyes, as in the eyes of Melville's critics and the public, so the lawyer, who's the narrator of Bartleby, is sort of there's an analogy made between him and Melville's critics and the public, is that this stage of his career, of Melville's career, is artistically barren, empty. His turn to metaphysical themes is in fact the equivalent of ceasing to write to these people. And this is an interpretation by Leo Marx. You don't have to agree with it. But even though I'm not a big fan of reducing an author or the significance of his or her literary work to some sort of biographical circumstances, I think this is an interesting interpretation, and it's one of many. If you do any research after you've read the story, of course, if you do any research on Melville's Bartleby, you'll notice that there are so many different interpretations, and it's kind of interesting because this is a story that's filled with sort of mystery and uncertainty, and then literary critics really sometimes have a hard time accepting that and really want to nail it down. Oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. And we feel very uncomfortable about leaving it open-ended the way I think we probably do have to leave it open-ended. So that's it for now. I hope that you give yourself the chance to really enjoy the pleasures of being frustrated by Bartleby. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. Take care. Bye.